legislative update. And I think you provided us a copy in your package.
Members of the Commission, we wanted to provide you a brief update of the legislation that relates to the medical marijuana amendment, both with regard to your duties and the Commission, as well as the amendment in toto. 15 different bills have been introduced with regard to the medical marijuana amendment. 2 of them have been passed and signed into law, including the extension of the deadline for the rulemaking, which is why we are no longer under the March 9th gun, but that's been pushed back 60 days to, I believe, May 8th. Additionally, the change was made with regard to the certification letters provided by physicians to the Department of Health that have been discussed. Of the other 13 remaining bills, the majority of them are in the House Rules Committee, and Representative House is the lead sponsor of those, so sometimes that can look a little confusing, but he has introduced a number of bills that go to administrative components, such as what sort of a disqualified felony you would have to apply. That specifically has been introduced to simplify it so that there are not questions with regard to the phrase felony of violence, which is not otherwise defined in law. Basically, if that bill passes, any felony, with the exception of an old federal controlled substance felony, if it has not been sealed or expunged, disqualifies someone. And that makes it a very simple process for you. It's not a question of the circumstances. It's not a question of one individual's story of what happened 5 years ago versus another person. If there's a felony that's not sealed or expunged, with the one exception, that would be the end of that application. We've made sure that Representative House introduced a bill that will comply with federal requirements for background checks. So your background checks that are run will be both state and federal. I'd say there was some imprecision in the language compared to what the FBI wants to have access to federal and national databases, and that is a bill that's been introduced to fix that. There is the bill that creates the option of licensing transporters, distributors, and processors, basically envisioning a step between the cultivation facilities and the dispensaries. It is couched entirely in permissive, not mandatory terms. If a cultivation facility wants to contract with a transporter, you have the authority to license companies to act as transporters to transport the product or the money, and license the employees of that kind of a business. The same thing goes to a distributor, kind of a second step warehousing situation to manage product flow between high sales volume, low sales volume, high production volume, low production volume. And also the option of the cultivation facility selling the raw product to a processor who would then process it to another form that would be sold to the dispensaries. There are additional introduced bills, including HB 1369 would provide for the payment of the administrative costs of the medical marijuana amendment before anything else. It would section off the tax revenue from the sales, which would then be used to pay for ABC's costs, the commission, DFA, health, possibly the crime lab, state police, other agencies that may be able to demonstrate an administrative cost to fulfilling that requirement before any of that money goes anywhere else. The other notable bills include a bill introduced by Senator English, which does not have that pay for the costs first component, but specifies that same, we talked about the 2%, 1%, 5% breakdown before. That would maintain under her bill, and it's the overage that she is sending somewhere else or wants to. HB 1391 would simplify the ability of cities and counties to zone dispensaries and cultivation facilities or to choose to go dry. And you also may want to be aware of Senate Bill 238 from Senator Rayford, which would delay the implementation of the amendment until there are federal level change to medical marijuana. There are bills that would ban the use of edibles in the product delivery. There is a bill that would ban smokable marijuana in the product delivery, as well as one that would prohibit dispensaries from growing even those 50 plants we've discussed previously. So those, other than the two that have become acts, are in committees right now, primarily in the House, but also in Senate Public Health, and one of them in Senate Public Education.
Couple of